Hi, this is Leadership Trailblazers and welcome everyone. I'm absolutely delighted today to welcome my guest, Ben Buckley. Ben has spent nearly 3 decades helping leaders, entrepreneurs and individuals create lasting transformation from the inside out. During that time, he's built and led global communities. He's spoken to hundreds of thousands of people worldwide and developed a unique approach to personal leadership transformation, which I know we're going to absolutely enjoy hearing about today. So at the heart of Ben's work is a simple but profound idea that everything visible in our lives is created by something invisible. So rather than focusing only on changing external results, Ben helps people make the invisible visible, enabling them to become aware of the deeper patterns that shape their leadership, relationships, purpose, and lives. So his work invites people beyond performance pressure and expectations into a deeper connection with themselves, enabling them to lead with greater clarity, wisdom, and freedom. So welcome again, Ben. We're absolutely delighted to have you here today and to hear your insights for our listeners.
Oh, thank you very much, Lois.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So let's kick off. So we're Leadership Trailblazers. So Ben, what do you think it takes to be a trailblazing leader today?
Yeah, that's a really fascinating question. And I'm sure most people would answer that by talking about strategy, vision, resilience, and all of those kind of qualities that make a leader really powerful. But for me, I would really look at it in a slightly different way. And I would be really looking to see, what is it that is beneath that? What is it that is beneath all of the performance and all of the external things that make a leader powerful? And I really believe that as we look into the things that we cannot see, those are the things that actually drive the performance, the vision, and all of the external results that leaders want. When most people come to me, they would ask me for a result. So a leader would come, and I work with all kinds of people, and I would ask, what is it that you want to create? And they would tell me a result. And the question I would then ask them is, well, what creates results? And normally they would say to me, well, action creates results. So I take an action, it creates a result. And then I would ask a leader, well, what creates the action? And they would say, well, thoughts. The thoughts that I have a thought, I take an action, it creates a result. But then I would ask them, like the $1 million question, well, what creates thoughts? What actually creates the thoughts that you take action on and you get results with? And, mostly people would answer things like the circumstances around me, the environment I'm in, my feelings, perceptions, ideas that come into my mind. But I really have come to discover that it is really the identity that we have, how we perceive ourselves, who we believe ourselves to be, that actually creates the way we see. The way we see creates the thoughts that we have, and those thoughts create actions, and those actions create results. So what I see there is that it's our identity that creates results. And therefore, that is really the most important part of being a trailblazing leader, is to really discover who I am, because discovering that will create amazing results. And by way of example, just to show how this kind of works in a deeper way, would be like an example of saying you have 2 people in the same cafeteria at work, and it's the same environment, nothing changes. The only thing that's different is the identity of the 2 people in that cafeteria. The first person comes in, and the first person has an identity that I'm not liked by people. And this person looks across the table, sees all the colleagues sat there and thinks, I'm not liked by people. So they then think, well, I'll go and sit on this table where nobody's there. So they sit on the table, hear everybody else laughing, and they're excluded. And then they feel nobody likes me. They leave the table with a result that nobody likes me, and it reinforces that eternal identity. Now, the second person comes in and their identity is, I'm really loved, people like me. And they look across the same table. They say, oh, look, all the people are sat there. That's really fun. They go and sit there. Everybody laughs and jokes. They say, what a great time. I'm really loved. They get up. And now they've created a result that I'm really loved. And that reinforces that identity. And really, to me, that really explains that, you know, the results that we have are not shaped by the environment. They're not shaped by the external things that are happening. They're shaped by how we see ourselves. And trailblazing leaders have this unique ability to really be able to, instead of allowing the things around them, the things that are outside, to really shape who they become, they allow the inside to shape the reality that they're living in. And just to go even deeper than this, and I know you asked us a very simple question, but to take that into a deeper way, there's a distinction that I like to use to really go deeper in terms of like leadership culture of who a person is, and it's called the bathtub distinction. And just for a moment, if you would just imagine like England winter, -3 degrees, and you take a bathtub, you fill it with boiling hot water, and you pour all this hot water into the bathtub. And if you leave that water for some time, I'm sure everybody knows that the temperature of the water will go down to the temperature of the environment that it's in. It doesn't matter how much hot water you put into that bathtub, the environment will bring the temperature of that bathtub, of that water, down to its temperature. And what I've discovered is most people are like that bathtub. Many, many people experience life just like that bathtub, because as they walk into an environment, that environment brings them down to who they are, immediately goes down to the level of the environment they're in. They're always in a place where the environment is influencing who they are. And over and over, we see this, that in order to, you know, so they walk into an environment, people are hateful towards them, so they're hateful. They walk into an environment that's fearful, they're fearful. They walk into an environment that's pressured, they're under pressure. And this pattern goes over and over and over. But here's really what I truly believe, and this is really defines what a trailblazing leader is they are not the bathtub, they are that environment. And by that, I mean, when I walk into a room and somebody's hateful to me, I'm not hateful, I love them. And I don't love them because they're loving me. I love them because that's who I am. I do not change my behavior on the basis of how somebody else behaves. I do not alter my being, my identity based on what somebody else does. I do not lower who I am. I do not change the integrity of myself based on somebody else. If I walk into an environment and it's chaotic and there's chaos there, I am peaceful. And I'm peaceful because that's who I am. And I am peaceful because that peace that's within me, and by peace, I just mean a completeness, a wholeness, where I'm not like striving to doubt myself. There's just an acceptance of who I am. And it's good, bad, and ugly. There's a wholeness there, a completeness there, nothing kind of missing on the inside. I'm just connected. And that state doesn't change by what's happening outside. And what I've found is that when I walk into a room that's full of chaos, within 20, 30 minutes, peace has happened everywhere, because I am the environment, not the bathtub. Yeah, please go on.
Yeah. And I think that there is so much profound truth in what you've just said, Ben. But I also know that from my work, that actually helping people to discover who they are, to really understand that, you know, it's about me on the inside that will influence what happens on the outside, as opposed to the other way around, can be a really difficult challenge for many people to come to terms with and accept.
Yes.
Because actually that means that we have to take full responsibility for what is happening to us. And, you know, sometimes it is just easier to blame the environment, to blame others, rather than take that full responsibility. What are your thoughts on how you help people over that challenge?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. And it is a very deep, challenging work, transformation, isn't it? It's not, it's beautiful. It's a journey into freedom, but it's also very confronting at times and very challenging. And I don't think it's an easy journey or a short journey or a shortcut. So yeah, I think the journey into helping someone, like you said, responsibility. I think when people use that word, they often mean it in the sense of I'm responsible. So, you know, this thing happened and it happened because I did this and I'm the cause of it. And there's like a blame, a guilt. And I find that word challenging to use because it puts a lot of guilt and shame, which doesn't really help people. Whereas I look at responsibility more like a game, like a kind of state that I can, it's like a lens that I could put on, right? So I could put on a lens that I am responsible for everything that happened. I mean, if I'm dealing with someone who is abused as a child and they've just told me they're abused as a child and I'm guiding them into responsibility, well, I'm not saying that they're responsible for the abuser abusing them, right? Or they caused that in any way. That would be just a terrible thing to say. And it's nothing that we would say. But I would invite them, and I have invited people to as a game, just for a moment, in this very moment, would you be willing to say that everything that I see right now and experience, I'm responsible for? Not trying to work out the past, the present, just right now. If you take that stand and explore that, just put the glasses on, like, and just, what do you see? I've seen just a profound shift in someone just like that.
That's amazing. You know, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of your question, which was, you know, how do we guide people into that experience of transformation? Responsibility is a huge part of it. You if you don't see how you can transform the world, you know, if you're not responsible for everything that's happened, you can't transform it. And, you know, so for me, it's it's very complex, but the simple way of explaining it would be that I'm really working to dissolve all of the barriers that you have within yourself to yourself. Like I spoke about love before. Now, I'm not saying that we should try and be loving. That's not what I'm asking to. I'm not asking someone also to try and be peaceful, like go and meditate on a corner and be peaceful. That's the opposite of what I'm saying. What I'm actually doing is dissolving and working against everything that separates you from that space that's already there. Because within the heart and the being of every human being is that state of peace. As I work through a person and work with a person, you'll see that every person comes to that same place. When I ask them to describe that place that's within themselves, it will have love, it will have joy, it will have peace, creativity, vision. It will have this kind of desire for life and for expansion and all of these things. And they're the same for every human being. And so I'm not really working to get somebody to do something or perform. I'm really just dissolving the barriers that they've created to accessing it, what's naturally there.
Yeah.
So, you know, just like a tree grows in a field, all the tree does is it deepens its roots into the earth, and that the earth sustains it. Everything that's natural. We're human. We're like a tree, or we're like something organic in its nature. So we're designed to be well. We're designed to be connected. We're designed to love and to it's natural to us. A child accesses it until they've created barriers to it. And we often create those barriers through trauma, the past, false identities we've created. I spent 20 years building what I thought, in the 1990s, I thought life, if I can be on that stage teaching thousands of people, my mentor was on TV and he was on stages and he trained me. And so I thought, well, if I do that, I've accomplished. And it wasn't like I wanted to be great. I just really loved the impact of it. I loved the service and sharing my truth. And I love that. And I thought, well, if I get there and build this, I'll be happy. Only to discover when I got there, I was in exactly the same place as I was at the beginning, although I'd developed a lot and grown a lot. And I'd spent 20 years building something that I actually didn't like. And the reason I didn't like it was because I thought to myself, within myself, well, nobody will pay me for being Ben. Right? Nobody's going to pay me to share the stuff I do now. No one who would pay me to do that. Nobody would. But if I perform, if I create great strategies, and I created strategies that built thousands of people in communities, then I developed programs that drew people into those. Then, I spoke on stages and we were getting anywhere between 500, 2,000 a week in these things. And, then now people will, now they'll like me. Now I'll have value. Now I'll have worth. Only to realize that I built a whole kingdom that was just full of crap, really. And the problem was I had built the crap. I had made it. And then I'm thinking, why have I done this? And that really brought me into this place of because I didn't notice what was really going on and what was really driving me on the inside, I just I hadn't wasted it, but I'd spent a lot of time creating things that were out of alignment and didn't bring me happiness,
I'd like to just explore that a little bit further, Ben, because I've heard this, and I've felt it myself. I've heard this, many times from the people that I work with, who might be very ambitious people or, for whatever reason. I always thought that when I got to this place that, I would be happy. I would feel as if I'd achieved what I wanted to achieve. I would feel a greater sense of purpose. For them then to say, actually, I've got here and I've thought, no, this isn't what I want. And very often what the solution is, what the perceived solution is, okay, well, I'll stop doing that and I'll go do something else, rather than, I need to really connect with me. And I agree with you about that natural state of well-being, that natural state of connectedness. But I think it's one of the things that I hear people resist, that actually, that are meant to have this natural state. And yet there's a yearning within, all of us to get to that place. But we do see it often built through external things. If I can get that position, if I can earn this much money, if I can drive that car or travel to that place, then that's going to be the thing that gives me that inner meaning, rather than I need to work on me in order for me to connect to who I really am. There's that song, I've been to paradise, but I've never been to me. I'm sure it's quite an old song. But one of the things that, and I think it connects back to the identity. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, I'm having a lot of conversations with people at the moment about, not just who they are, but what people want to know about who they are. And that I'm hearing from a lot of leadership teams that they really want to know what their leader stands for, but then conversely what they stand against. Now, what you were saying before about if somebody is hateful to me, then that's not that I don't need to be hateful to them, because that's not who I am. But what do you think about this question about, what do I stand for? And therefore, who am I? And what do people hear about what I stand for, and what therefore I stand against? What are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, it's a great question. I love the way you framed it, and your insights about, like, I love your desire for the how-to, because I love that. That's where I spend my life. I know on a podcast it's very difficult to go how-to, because it just means drilling into one thing quite deeply and experiencing it, not just intellectually understanding it. So when I think about the question again, I have, and I'm sorry that I'm going to answer things in maybe a different way than the question may sound, and so in my mind, I would see a picture, and again, my goal is to point people to the invisible structures that are actually kind of driving the external. And to me, that's the key for a leader who needs to make a stand. And the question is, what are they making a stand on, really? And for me, if I would use a picture that I would see in my mind when I think about this, would be like a ship on an ocean, like going through a storm right now. If the ship, the integrity of the hull and the boat remain intact, and the ship's integrity is kept whole, no matter what happens, that ship is going to make it through to the other side. But the only way that ship can sink is if there are holes in the boat and that water seeps into it. And when water fills that ship, it sinks. And what I've discovered is that, you will have no public victories without private ones. And every single person who I know, who I've got over many, I've never seen it where they had a public failure or something went wrong on the outside where it wasn't already privately happening. And what I've seen was, to me, the answer to this is it's connection. Because when a leader is connected, their integrity, they remain the same. Their values, the simple things that we believe. Leadership is not complex. I know there is complexity to it when you're tactically making decisions. That's very complex, and lots of people have great wisdom they share. But for me, I only focus on what's happening inside, because I know if that leader remains connected, I've never seen in my entire life hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of leaders, personally working with them. I've never seen one that was connected and externally shipwrecked. Never seen. Every person who shipwrecked was disconnected on the inside, disconnected to who they are, their values, their wisdom, their truth. They were not creating a solid anchor for the team. They had lost it. And now they're behaving in ways that are out of alignment with who they are. They're doing things that are out of integrity with their truth. They're not connected anymore. And what I've discovered is, if I can just focus with a person and keep them in that connection, create a powerful environment that they create with them internally, externally, where they have a place to be connected, rooted, nourished, where they're being watered every day internally, just like a tree would, where they're being nourished, and that person will always thrive. They may have the moments, they may go through the storms, but they will always remain intact, and they will carry their team through. And everybody on that ship will get to the other side. And yet everything, to me, comes from connection. It creates everything. You don't create your own being. You don't create love. You don't create peace. It emerges from that connection. It's automatic. You don't have to try. Once you connect, you don't have to try to do the other things. You don't have to work. All you have to do is allow it to come. and remove the barriers that you build to prevent it, right? Which again is probably the biggest challenge. But I would say, if you want to make a stand on who you are and your identity, and stand stronger in that. And if that integrity remains, you'll never sink.
I absolutely 100% agree with you, and that's what I see in my work as well. Is that maintaining that integrity, maintaining that that connection to yourself, to your own values, that does carry you through, and I think it's what so many teams and so many people are hungry for.
It is.
They might articulate it in all sorts of different ways, but that's what the desire is, and that's what the hunger is. And when you think about and I don't know whether you would agree with me on this, but when you think about those barriers that we create, the way I would articulate it is that most of those barriers are created through fear of fear of failure, self-doubt, fear of what other people will think of us, or all of those things, and working on helping people to dissolve those fears, get past those fears is the work, if you like. And I think I said to you when we spoke before, I think I would describe it as somebody's inner game. Your description is about making the invisible visible, which I absolutely love, and I love your metaphors as well, Ben. I think that one about the ship and the hull staying intact, it will get through the storm, is really beautiful. You've said a couple of things about this already, but if I was to ask you, and I know I'm asking how again, I am practical and I do like
it's great. Love it.
But what do you think that you do differently as a leader in your field that enables you to do this powerful work with others?
I mean, I've always, growing up in leadership, I started at the very bottom, and you naturally evolved through it to the place where I was actually leading things. So what I always found was that every time I shared what I felt, I was kind of rubbished. I always felt like I think differently, and it's a bit, I'm always the odd one out. Why do I see this and everyone else is somewhere else? What I always found was I could see as soon as someone said, let's do this, I would say, well, this is going to create this is going to create this is going to create this. And in this time, it's going to be like that. And that to other people was very disconcerting because they felt like I was rubbishing what they said. I had a lot of years of just growing, learning how to share that, how to develop that. But, I do think differently. And to me, everything, when I see something, I see what is the heart of the matter. That's what I'm looking for in the work. Like, what is actually causing that? Because if I want to transform it, I need to go to where the issue is, not try to fix something that has no impact on it. Try to make an adjustment where there isn't a problem. It's like, if you've got a flat tire and then you're trying to fix the engine, kind of thing. So for me, what really makes it unique is that I just go to the heart of that, and that's the only place I go to. I leave the other things to other people, to do with their skills and their expertise. But I like to take the world to the people, to the heart of the matter, and I call that the field. For me, the way of describing it's just trying to describe something that's invisible. How do you describe this world inside that's so real? As soon as I talk to someone on a personal level and they access that world, you can see their whole state changes, tears come in their eyes, they feel things, they think things, and that's the place they live all day long, right? But yet they don't have words to articulate it. So I help people to put language on that, and I call it the field. And it's there's something that happened when back in the 90s, before I knew even this quote around this field. But the quote of Rumi is really great, which says, "Beyond the idea of right doing and wrong doing. There is a field, and I'll meet you there. And as you were saying about these lenses of, like, that to me means that in our natural state, we have these lenses like, this is good, that's right, this is wrong, this is good. And we're constantly having a lens of like agreement. Oh, I agree with you, I disagree with you. So we're looking at everything that way. We're not actually hearing what's being said. We're not actually observing what's actually there. We're just judging it completely. Good, bad, right, wrong. If I agree with it, then I accept it. If I don't, then I don't. I never really expand, grow. And when I look at that lens, and this is one of my lenses, was the need to be right.
Yeah.
Right. And the need to be right separated me always from my connection. So I would be right and lose my connection all the time. I'd love to be right.
I love that quote as well, the singing field. I think it's a beautiful quote. And I remember many years ago, I'm not gonna share all of my family details, but I remember years ago, when I was arguing with my mum and saying to her, it's more important to be happy than to be right.
Right.
And I think that, that she didn't accept that. However,
yeah.
That's a long story.
She was right. She became right.
Of course she was right. Yeah, of course she was.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mum. And but I remember trying to get to that place myself. And as I say, when I work with the people that I work with, wanting to help them to get to that place. And one of the interviewees that I had a couple of weeks ago, he was talking about, the impact that all of the global social chaos, anxiety has on leaders today, and how it places a different kind of expectation on them. But what you said about, making judgments, so you've got that line between, as you say, a leader has to make judgments to make decisions, but that doesn't mean to say that they have to judge others or judge themselves, because I find the more we judge others, the more we judge ourselves as well.
It's the same, yes. Yeah.
So getting past that, but still enabling leaders to understand that they can still make good judgment without judging is a place that I often find myself working in.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the place. I mean, I would describe, the language I would use would be that, in the world we live today, wisdom is going to be the greatest commodity that we have.
Yeah.
It's going to be the most valuable thing. In a world where information has no value, it's free, it's everywhere, it's saturated. I mean, information is everywhere. What we require is wisdom, and wisdom comes from connection. It doesn't come from being right or wrong. There's no such thing in wisdom. Wisdom is a flow that comes from you when you're connected. And when you are asking, like, what should I do here? And you're connected, the solution emerges. And it emerges from your experience, from who you are, from your identity, and that guides who you are. So the solution is reinforced by your integrity, your values, who you actually are, and that alignment strengthens the decisions that I'm making. One of the best stories I ever heard, which just blew my mind, was like back in the time when the Trade Center was, there was a terrorist attack in the US. And I heard this story and hope it's true, but whether it's true or not, I think it's true. And it was just such an amazing story, because there were all of these people in a lift going up to the top of the tower. There were all of these guys in like Gucci, Armani, whatever, and with the latest top of the range, the greatest people, in the country, richest, most powerful. And there was the janitor, and they were all traveling up when the plane hit the tower. And when the plane hit the tower, everything shut off. There's fire, noise, and just darkness. Now, as soon as the lift shut off, the janitor knew what floor they were on. and began to bang the wall with his brush and said, look, I know there's a chute here, we clean it. So he banged it, found the hollow, broke through, and he guided all of those people who were trying to call people on their phones, panicking. And he guided them through this all the way to the bottom, and they all survived, and they were like on the news, being interviewed about it. But what was amazing to me was that in the time of chaos, in the time where everything was going wrong, suddenly the janitor who was the lowest when they got in the lift became the leader. He became the person who knew what to do in a time of trouble, in a time where chaos had hit everything. And what we're emerging into in the next season of time, and we're going to see this, is that what worked before is definitely not going to work in the future. And the way people have led, I mean, with AI, if you're not more conscious than an AI, you're in big trouble.
Yes.
If you've relied on information and you have no integrity and nothing deeper than just that knowledge, you will have no value in the coming year. You will not be able to lead. You will have an AI leading over you because you're not conscious. And what is going to emerge is a deeper level of consciousness, a deeper level of awareness. That's beyond the AI is going to be a great tool, in my opinion, but we're going to require a deeper connection with it's taking us to a deeper place, a better place. And I think in the next 10, 20 years, wisdom is going to be the most valuable. People will connect with leaders who have wisdom, who have connection and awareness. And instead of them leading the team, they're going to create a space that connects everybody else to their awareness. So instead of, for me, leadership is not one powerful person sitting at a table, but it's everybody at the table is allowed to be powerful without diminishing each other.
Yes.
True honor is like that, isn't it? It's like, I allow you to be powerful, you allow me to be powerful without diminishing.
Absolutely.
And I think that is a picture of it.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a couple of things I just want to pick up on there. One is that, you talked about the fact that you think differently, and, and also about wisdom. And one of the questions that I often ask people is, what is your wisdom? What's the wisdom that is unique to you? And that actually, when you do something differently or you think differently, that is part of your superpower. That and the wisdom that you have as a human being, that is built from all sorts of things, your experience, but also your personality and the identity and your values, that is the key. And that is what people are going to respond to. And I love the story about the janitor. I haven't heard that exact story, but I've heard something quite similar. But as I say, it was his wisdom in that moment that he could share that nobody else had, that enabled him there to be the leader in that situation. So I think what you're saying about AI is 100% true. And I think what we're seeing is that people are now loving AI and using AI, but they're also getting even more hungry for human connection, and will reject things that they just see as AI generated.
Absolutely.
So I think we are in a very special time at the moment, actually, that is going to lead us into a different path. And I mean, this is the whole concept that I talk about, that the way we led yesterday isn't going to lead us into tomorrow.
Beautiful. I'm glad you do. That's so beautiful.
So just, before we close, Ben, would you be willing to share some of the important moments in your story that really helped to shape you? You've said one or two things, but if you could just pull out for our listeners one or two of those important moments.
Yeah. It's so interesting because we like to be very positive, right? But I'm not a huge fan of being positive. I find positive is just a kind of swing from the negative, and they both just kind of ping pong each other. But so if I'm truly honest, I would say that everything that was really great in my life came from pain. It came from challenges. It came from things that at the time, I just despaired of them. And, so one of the stories, which is probably, I'm so grateful for it looking back, but this was probably early 2000s, like 2003, 2004. And I'd been under a mentor for 3 years, and I was doing a job, and then in my spare time doing all of this development stuff and trying to create communities and stuff like that. So I was working under this leader, and just, there are these moments where, and it's not like you're doing anything wrong, right? But everything's just going wrong. It's like you go to work, your boss is angry at you. You go to the project, it's gone belly up. Then you go to your mentor and he's not happy with you. And then you go home and it's like the dog pisses on your leg as well, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like everything's just against you, right? And so everything was like that. And there were these couple of meetings outside of my work that I couldn't attend because of scheduling. And so I'd missed these 3 meetings in a row. And my mentor who was doing these projects called me outside of work and called me to his office. And he said, look, next year I'm going to work. I've really been guided to only work with 10 people. And I've selected 10 leaders who I believe have the potential to be this amazing leaders, blah, blah, blah. And he said, and you're not one of them. And I was like, damn. And then he gave this spiritual reason. It was almost like not only did he think I wasn't, but like God, the universe thinks that I'm not good enough either, right? And so I'm leaving this office and I'm just like, everything I've worked for feels like it's gone, like I failed. Like I worked hard for that. I used to work, 8-9 hours a day at office, leave my office and go to this other thing, not even eat dinner sometimes, and then get back at 12 o'clock at night. That was what I was doing because I was so passionate about it. And then to have this, it was just, and I just really felt at the time, just like I wanted to die feeling, felt like I couldn't get out of bed. And, then I felt sorry for myself, right? So I spent some weeks honestly just feeling sorry for myself and complaining, saying he's an arsehole, all of that, calling him names. And then suddenly I came to this realization, like, I really have a choice. I can allow his voice, his beliefs, all, what's going on with him to change the way I feel and who I am and stop me doing what I want to do. Or I can trust what I hear on the inside, because when I connected on the inside, I could see myself on those stages. I could see myself helping hundreds of people. I could see the power. I could see I could see everything that I have now. Then I couldn't experience it fully. I was still developing out because I was always being flipped in and out by the outside stuff that was going up. And I kind of said to myself, well, I'm either going to be defined by the voices of other people, or I'm going to be defined by the voice that's inside of me. You can probably see that I made that choice, and that wasn't an easy choice.
I'm sure.
That's like a choice where you say, right, this is who I am, this is what I believe in. I let it come out, and then by the time I'm driving to work, I'm like, that guy's an idiot. He's done this to me. And then I'm like, no, and there's this like war that's going on the inside. But that choice, the inside overcame. And everything that I saw then created and happened. What was amazing was the leaders who under my first mentor, who, and I'd actually moved, I went from England to India to work with a mentor for 3 years. And I was like at the bottom tier of those leaders. There was like 4 tiers and I was the bottom one. And the people who were his direct leaders, in probably 2014, I was leading all of those 4 leaders.
That's amazing.
Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah, I do.
But that comes from inside, and it wasn't an ego thing. It was just, I died to myself. I died to the stupid things that, it was all about being right and wrong, being good or bad. Like here, do I be right? Which is to criticize the guy and say how badly they treated me. or do I look beyond that and find my wisdom and live in that? And that is hard to let go of being right when you are right. If you've been mistreated
it really is.
Uh, yeah, you would know. Your viewers will be people who the boss speaks to them really rudely. Do you want to be right, or do you want to grow? And it's really difficult. It's very challenging, and so that would be definitely one of them. And there's just so many things I could share like that about pain, about challenges, about I've lost everything at least 2 or 3 times, where everything just collapsed, and I didn't mean it to. I worked for the opposite of it. But in the midst of everything falling apart is when I really found a deeper sense of what I really wanted. And it was such a gift to me, but at the time it just seemed unfair or painful. And I think that's part of letting those lenses go and having people with you during that time who can stand by your side, who can reflect the truth to you, who can connect you back to that. I mean, the book, The Alchemist, is amazing. I love that book. It's that same. Yeah, that it's all within you, and you go the whole world looking for something when it was there all along. And that's really what I believe I create with the people I work with. I always bring them back to that connection. So whatever's happening, we can begin to create from the inside and watch all of those things transform. And it's a beautiful thing to watch it happen rather than trying to do it. Just to watch who I am when I'm just being myself and just being connected, and how that impacts the world around me and just creates incredible transformations in everybody else.
I think that, and thank you for sharing that story, Ben, because I think that's a really important, well, it's a great story, but I think it's an important thing for us all to understand and to realize, you know, as you say, we make choices all the time, and we make choices in painful moments and we make choices in happy moments, but the choices that we make as to whether we're gonna, you know, sit with the pain or listen to the voice inside, I think those are the moments that define us. Yeah, thank you for that.
Absolutely.
For that story. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Yeah.
So before we close, Ben, if people want to get in touch with you, and do you want to say a little bit more about this program that you are creating, which I think you said was called The Field, and if people want to get in touch with you, where can they get in touch with you to find out more about you, your work, and that program?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. What's been really interesting is when I transitioned out of my leadership and speaking, and it wasn't like I jumped from one thing to another. It was like I evaluated what I really loved, and it was the connection with people more than the stage and all of the events and things that I used to do. So I transitioned into a coaching kind of business. And what was really interesting was I set up a website, do all the things you're meant to do, and none of it really worked. But what I found was that when I connected with people and they were really impacted, they just referred. So my business just filled up with clients. I've never, ever made a social media post, not one time ever, or I've never done anything extra. My website, I just didn't bother because it just no one cared or looked at it, or it just didn't see. So I just, I just worked by referral only. And one of the things I did was because of the, it's a price, it excludes a lot of people when you're doing one-to-one because of the investment, right? And so what I started to do a few years ago was create these little groups of people who had connected and they just wanted something that they could access. So I'm also been working alongside people in the health profession who are like doctors who also have the same philosophy and work that I do. And so we've been creating these holistic kind of programs which talk about how we connect to our body, our health, our mental well-being, our spiritual well-being, and creating like these holistic kind of experiences for people. So it's been incredible, like seeing people who have had trauma for 30 years in 10 minutes, just dissolve it, in the groups, what these tiny little groups we've had. So I've been putting all these distinctions, all of these spiritual kind of is a spiritual process, right? Like I'm explaining to you intellectually about dissolving this or this. It sounds, but there's an actual deep process to it. Very simple. I was doing this, with children. I've done this with kids. The work that we do is very simple, and that will annoy people. But the actual connection and transformation is very simple. There's nothing difficult to understand. And so I've done it with children, and I've done it with many young people. I'm not saying with very little ones, but they were from 11 onwards. And what I found is a child, just as an adult, you can connect them to themselves, and they, oh my gosh. I mean, I was once with a group, I think 100 from 11 to 14. And I'm telling you, all I did was share with them a little exercise, a game in which that would connect them to themselves. And after 30 minutes, the children were crying, sobbing, sharing personal things, just everything that was going on. They didn't even go for their dinner, which kids never do that. And, and so what I think is if it doesn't work with children, then I'm overcomplicating it, because it's very simple what we're doing. And so really, I've been working this through with these groups and with these people, taking these things that are considered deep or complicated and making it simple for people and practicing it with the group. So I'll be releasing a program that will be released more to everybody outside of that in the next few months. But I've been doing this for a couple of years, just making sure that it all works, and working with some other powerful coaches as well who are creating a lot of the physical side as well, because people experience a lot of trauma, pain in their body as well as in their mind. So so I do a lot of work with their mind. They take it through the body and the emotions and things like that, and then we complete it with like a really holistic transformation. So that's kind of a little picture of the kind of program we've been doing.
That's great. So I know you said it's probably going to be a few months before it's ready, but if people want to find out more, how should they get in touch with you?
Well, I think I'll just give you my email for now.
Okay.
And they can just email me, and I'm always here. I love talking to people. I love meeting people. And I really do. I just love it. So, yeah, if anybody would like to know more, discover more, maybe this is something that resonates with them, I'd love to have a conversation.
Okay. Well, we will put your email into the show notes. So anybody who's interested in getting in touch with Ben, the email will be in the show notes. And, if you send me those details, Ben, even if we can't get them into this episode, I will share them on a future episode. I'm really, really happy to do that. I think
thank you so much,
absolutely
Lois.
wonderful and so powerful. So thank you. So many great insights in there, Ben. It's been really wonderful to talk to you today. I know that there's going to be a lot in there that our listeners are going to be really fascinated by. So a big thank you again. And as I say, we'll make sure we share your contact details, and anything you want to send to me, I'll share in future episodes.
Thank you so much, Lois. It's been such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for the opportunity to share.